Okay, this is my third attempt at making this video, so this is gonna be it. Third and final. I'm not doing any editing, and I was gonna have to then, so knock some things out. I'm enrolled in school, hooray. I can't take a chorus class. Boo, okay. It doesn't fit in my schedule because I have to fulfill certain graduation requirements here that I already would have fulfilled in Virginia at Riverbend. So, I don't know. People talking in my video. I wouldn't have minded so much if it weren't so incredibly off topic. It's about our door. I don't even know whether or not you can hear this. I could just be crazy. Okay, focusing. I can't take a chorus class, it doesn't fit in my schedule, but there is a chance that I can work with the chorus teacher during seminar, which is kind of like flex time, except it takes up a whole class block, or maybe after school or something. And, you know, I can't take a drama class because they don't have drama classes, but I can do Soldiers Theater. And Soldiers Theater puts on, like, 5 shows each year, and one of them seems to usually be a musical, if not more. So, yes, gonna try and get involved with that, except it involves auditioning and stuff. So I'm gonna have to work on that. I just said in a minute at 1.5 what it took to, like, except, gosh. Why do I have to listen? It's so loud in here. Yeah, I just said in a minute and a half what it, well, 2 minutes now, what it took me 7.5 minutes to say the last time I tried, because I kept getting distracted and elaborating. But yeah, my mom got me this the other day. She showed it to me. It's a tiny river bend. It's prettier than I remember Riverbend being, like, ever. And it looks more temperate, but it's pretty, and I'm gonna put it up. So you guys will always be in here when you're not in my heart. I'm actually pointing to my heart on the left side of my chest, but I don't know if this video will flip or not. So just know that I was correct in that question of anatomy. I can put this down here on a thing. Yes, I think that's all the updates I really have on my life. I haven't done a lot. Oh, except I am leaving on Friday to go to Lake Bled, which is in Slovenia and very pretty. So I'm gonna be there all weekend. Hurrah. Move my feet. That was uncomfortable. Since you guys were reading stories, and now I want to read a story. Well, okay, one, I haven't seen Teen Wolf, so I didn't follow some of that story. Well, I followed the fanfiction just fine. I just didn't understand how it fit into the show. So there's that. It was nice, though. I liked it. And also, Looking for Alaska. Okay, Callie, I figured out what that book was after you were reading some of it. I tried to guess it first. Well, at first I said, you can't hide what the title is. It's in the thing. It says Miles to Go. Clearly it's going to be a book called Miles to Go. Nope. It was not at all. It's a book called Looking for Alaska, and I wanted to read it. I was in the library watching that. Headphones, don't worry. There's a sign saying to respect the silence. And who am I to defy the silence? Now I'm getting all creepy Doctor Who feelings. Okay. Silence will fall when the question is asked. So, now that we're done being off topic, Looking for Alaska. I got up. I was still listening to you. I got up and I looked for it, and it was not there. I searched it, and somebody checked out the only copy at our library. I could have requested it, but it's due, like, next week, so I think it's gonna be okay if I wait. Looking for Alaska. I want to read it. I just hadn't read it, and now I want to read it more than I did before, especially because it was really good, and it definitely felt like John Green Like, you know, after you read a bunch of an author, that exercise we had to do in ninth grade, like, which one of these sounds like James Herriot? And it was the one that sounded really nice about the animals. It was like that, except John Green and no animals. And I knew what the book was as soon as we read the last words, okay? I go to seek a great perhaps. It did make me want to go seek a great perhaps, but I haven't, let's say. Well, let's say it because it's true. I have not gone to seek a great perhaps, but perhaps I can seek it here. Perhaps better than I would have in Virginia. However, I do encourage all of ye to go and seek your great perhapses. Perhapses. Huh. It's a good thing I'm not doing any editing, because otherwise you would never have gotten to see this. This is what talking to me is like when you don't talk back. So this is what me talking to myself is like. Weird. No questions there. So yeah. Back in the same vein, I wanted to read you guys the first chapter of one of my favorite stories, which I know that one of you has read, and I'm pretty sure that one of you has not read. You will know who you are once I actually start reading the story, which I shall not name until then. I have to open it and then hide the title. Can you see that? No. I hope not, because it says the title. Don't look down there. Can I, like, hide them with something? Pants or blanket? Oh, that's a map. I can't read those. Not out loud like I can read words. I can totally read maps, though. So, here we are. That wasn't part of the book. Prelude. The wolf tasted the babe's face with the tip of his tongue and pronounced her sweet, and the fox licked the back of her head to see if it was so. For the rest of her life, when this child grew into a fairy with bright eyes and a laugh as loud and unladylike as a crow's, that spot on her head, her hair, would never lie flat. And though she wouldn't remember the night the creatures had gathered round to look at her and taste and smell her, she would call those unruly hairs her foxlick without knowing why. The branches overhead thrummed with birds. They would wait their turn, but they wouldn't be quiet about it. No matter. The creatures weren't worried about being interrupted by fairies. The imp had smuggled the babe far from home, floating her down Mesquite Creek on a linden leaf so that this unusual starlight gathering would draw no unwanted notice. The creatures had her for the night, and by morning she would be back snug in her cradle with no one the wiser. "Shall we begin?" asked the imp, nuzzling the babe's pink cheeks with her whiskers and making her laugh. "Who'll go first?" They all clamored to go first. Fur brushed against hide, tusks clashed with horns as they pressed nearer, eager and gentle. Most of these creatures would be long dead by the time this babe had grown up and taken her place in the world, but they would give her their blessings in turn and hope they would help to make her way. There would never be another chance. So much depended on this tiny fairy whom dreams had at last made real. Chapter 1. "Devils!" screamed the fisherman, pointing at the sky. Magpie Wind Witch didn't know many human words, but she knew this one, devil, in more than 20 of their languages, though this was the first time she'd been called one herself. "Foolish mannies," she scoffed, looking down at them from the sky where she was circling their fishing boat amid a swirl of crows. "Aye!" the humans wailed, dropping to their knees to pray. Certainly it was strange to see crows this far out over the open ocean, but to call them devils, that was going a bit far. Magpie shook her head and signaled to the crows to turn away. This wasn't the boat they sought anyway. The boat they sought would be empty, forsaken by its fishermen and left to drift. The boat they sought had met a real devil. The crows rose up, and the west wind gathered them again into his arms and surged across the sky. Behind them, the fishermen lay slouched and gasping against the rails of their boat, their turbans unwinding in the wind. They were right to fear devils. Magpie had a hunter's respect for fear. It sharpened the senses. But those fishermen, she didn't doubt, for all their prayers and worry, wouldn't hesitate to uncork any strange bottle they fished out of the ocean just to see what was inside. It happened all the time these days, and the devils were just delighted. She fixed her eyes fiercely on on the sea and scanned its breadth between identical horizons back and forth. It had been days since her grandfather, the West Wind, had heard the albatross's rumor of an abandoned boat adrift at sea. In the time it had taken him to find her and bring her here, it could have drifted anywhere. The sea was a vast hunting ground, and she was nervous. Though the wind held the crows aloft in his airy arms, they weren't made for such long flight, and would still grow tired in time. They needed to find that boat. "How are you holding up, my feather?" she asked the crow she rode upon, stroking his sleek head with both hands. "Like a leaf on a breeze," he answered in his sing-song voice. "A champagne bubble, a hovering hawk, a cloud, nothing to it." "So you say, but I'm no tiny sprout anymore, Calypso, and sure you can't carry me forever." "Ha, piff! You weigh no more than a dust mouse, so hush your spattering. 'Twill be a sore day for me when I can't carry my pie." Magpie went back to scanning the sea, her chin resting on Calypso's head. Ever since she was a tiny thing, she'd loved riding him, but as she grew up, she did so less and less, generally flying alongside him instead. Her own dragonfly wings were sleek as blades, many-paned like stained glass, and swift as any wings under the sun or moon. But she was tired, still drained from a 2-day chase in the desert. That scarab devil had given her a time, to be sure, so she hadn't put up a fuss when Calypso insisted on carrying her. As far as her keen eyes could tell, the surface of the sea spread out empty all around them. They flew on, deeper into the vastness of it. An hour passed before, at last, Magpie spotted a listing, slack-sailed boat. The crows circled, heaving and panting, and dropped out of the arms of the wind to go in for a closer look. Magpie stood up on Calypso's back. She took one step into thin air and plummeted some 30 feet straight down before flicking her wings open like a fan and coming in for a sharp landing on the boat's rail. She crouched, paused, then prowled forward like a creature ready to spring into the air, surprised. The boat seemed empty. Magpie waved, and all 7 crows came into land. Seeing nothing amiss on deck, they cautiously descended into the fishing boat's small cabin. There they found signs of recent human habitation: tobacco, dirty tin cups, a backgammon board open on the table. On the same table, Magpie found just what she was looking for and had hoped not to find. She had hoped this would turn out to be some human mystery of no interest to herself or any of her kind, but that was not the case. Lying on its side was a tarnished silver flask with a long neck and elegant scrolled handle. Its wax seal had been broken and lay in 2 pieces beside it. She and Calypso exchanged a somber look. "Might just be a coffee pot," the crow offered hopefully. He had a chip in the left side of his beak that made him seem perpetually to grin. Magpie's eyes swept over the table and settled on the 2 halves of the seal. She took it up in her hands, and her face paled. "It's no coffee pot," she said. "What is it, Pie?" Calypso asked, hopping toward her. The other crows crowded in, curious. "What you got, Mags? Eh, Mags?" asked the smallest one, Pup, in a quiver of spasmodic energy. Magpie held the pieces together. Emblazoned in the wax was a hand in the center of a flame. "It's the Magruin seal," she said in a hushed voice. "The Magruin!" They all squawked, puffing up their feathers. "The Jin King?" gasped Pup's brother, Pigeon. "But," Calypso stammered, "I never heard of him trifling with devils." "Nor I." Magpie was solemn, looking around the small cabin. Aside from the seal, there was no evidence a devil had ever been here. The odor was usually overwhelming when a devil had been freshly been freed from thousands of years stewing in its own stench, but she smelled nothing. Don't look at the title. That wasn't in the book. She sat back on her heels. She'd caught quite a few devils since she had got started hunting them 8 years ago. The scarab devil had made 23, which was, as far as she knew, more than any other living fairy had caught. That was 23 ancient bottles, fished up by humans, and 23 broken seals. None of those had borne the sigil of the Magruin. Magpie knew the legends of the Devil Wars better than anyone, and in none of them did the great Jin King himself stoop to wrestling snags into their prisons. That had always been the work of his champion, Bellatrix, the greatest fairy of all legend, and the champions of the other 6 Jinn. "What grim beast could need so strong a seal?" Calypso whispered, peering round the cabin. "Think it's still aboard?" "Nah," Magpie said. "It's gone." She felt no devilish presence. In fact, but for the missing fisherman, there seemed nothing at all wrong. She had seen the aftermath of plenty of devil escapes, and they all had 2 things in common: blood and stench.